The housing affordability crisis can feel like this massive, impossible problem. But what if the reason we're not making progress is because we've been using the wrong playbook all along? Today, we are going to look at a brand new strategy that's designed to completely shift the game, a plan to make real, tangible progress on housing by 2027. So, let's get into it.
It all kicks off with this really weird paradox. We spend so much energy and money helping people with things like down payments and mortgages. But what if all those good intentions are actually just throwing fuel on the fire? It's a pretty counterintuitive idea, but it's absolutely central to understanding why we need a totally new approach.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to dig into that price hike paradox. Then, we'll unpack a new 4-part plan, and we'll really focus in on 2 of the biggest pathways: unlocking land and building smarter. And finally, we're going to hit the biggest hurdle of all, the political reality check.
Okay, first up, let's get right to the bottom of this paradox. Why are the traditional solutions we've been leaning on for decades just not cutting it anymore?
So this slide really gets to the core of the issue. On one hand, you've got the goal of what we call demand-side subsidies. Like tax credits for buyers. The idea is simple: give people more money to compete for a home. But then you look at the reality in a tight market. When there just aren't enough homes to go around, all that extra cash does is spark a massive bidding war for the same tiny pool of houses. And the result? Prices just shoot up for everybody.
And look, this isn't just some theory, it's a really well-documented economic principle. And the OECD sums it up perfectly here. When supply is inelastic, which is just a fancy way of saying you can't snap your fingers and magically build more homes overnight, giving buyers more cash doesn't create affordability, it just creates inflation. For years, we've basically been tackling the wrong side of the supply and demand equation.
So if boosting demand is actually part of the problem, well, the solution has to be about radically increasing supply. It's time to shift our focus to the new playbook, which is built around a 4-part plan to do exactly that.
This new supply-side strategy has 4 core components. First, fixing the absolute mess of land use and permitting rules. Second, actually building the infrastructure to support new homes. Third, modernizing the construction industry itself. And finally, flipping our tax and finance incentives to reward building, not just speculation. We're going to focus in on the first 2 because they're widely seen as the highest impact reforms.
Let's start with the single most powerful lever we have: unlocking land. This is all about tearing down the mountain of red tape that makes it so incredibly slow, expensive, and just plain difficult to build anything in the first place. Now, to really get this, we have to understand a little bit of industry jargon, the entitlement premium. Just think of it as the price of uncertainty. When developers have to spend years and literally millions of dollars just to maybe get permission to build, that massive risk gets baked right into the cost of the land. The whole goal of these new reforms is to slash that premium by making the rules of the game clear and predictable.
So what do these reforms actually look like? Well, first, there's a shift to by-right approvals. That basically means if a project follows the zoning rules, it gets a green light. No more endless debates. Then there's upzoning near transit so we can build more homes where people actually want to live. Legalizing missing middle housing, things like duplexes and townhouses, creates more diverse, affordable options. And finally, and this is huge, compressing project review timelines from years down to months. That's an absolute game changer.
And here's the thing. We're already seeing this playbook get results. Up in Canada, their Housing Accelerator Fund literally pays cities to adopt these kinds of reforms, and it's already helped get over 100,000 new homes permitted. It just goes to show, when you change the rules of the game, you really can change the outcome.
Okay, so unlocking land is piece number 1 of the puzzle, but it's not enough. You also have to be able to service that land and then build on it efficiently. And that brings us to our next pathway, building smarter.
Yeah, this quote right here just gets right to the heart of it. You can rezone an entire neighborhood to allow for big apartment buildings, but if you don't also upgrade the power grid, the water mains, and the transit lines to support them, nothing actually gets built. You've just moved the bottleneck from the zoning office to the utility department.
The other side of building smarter is all about innovation. It's kind of wild, but construction productivity has barely budged in decades. This playbook calls for adopting modern methods, like modular and panelized construction, where parts of a building are actually made in a factory. It also pushes for standardizing codes, speeding up inspections, and, this is crucial, scaling up the workforce by training a new generation of skilled tradespeople to actually get the work done.
Okay, so the playbook seems clear, right? It's logical, it's backed up by data, and it's even starting to show results in some places. But Now we have to talk about the final and maybe the toughest part of all of this, the political reality check.
This is where we run into a really tricky concept called policy lag. See, building new housing, new transit lines, new power grids, all of that takes years. But voters are impatient. They want solutions that work right now. And this time gap creates this huge political temptation to just fall back on the old playbook of handing out cash, because that feels like an immediate fix, even if we know it makes the problem worse in the long run.
And for anyone paying attention to where things are headed, this is a huge takeaway. The most valuable real estate of the future isn't just going to be about having a good location. It's going to be about land that is zoned for density and already has the power, water, and transit infrastructure ready to go. Powered and connected land, that's the new gold.
And that really leaves us with a final, big question. We have a clear, data-driven playbook to finally start tackling the housing crisis. The strategies are known. The question isn't what do we do anymore. The question is whether we and our leaders have the political courage and the long-term vision to stick with the plan. The playbook is written. The real question is, will our cities have the will to actually run the plays?